Here's a fun fact. The first 90 employees at Wiz are today worth anywhere between $10 to $50 million each. In fact, over 300 of them became multi-millionaires. And it wasn't just the early founders. Engineers, mid-stage hires, even those who joined as late as 2022 walked away with anywhere between $250,000 to $1 million each. Take the case of OpenAI. If you were one of the first 50 employees in the company with just over 0.1% equity, after dilution, you could truly be sitting on cash worth $300 million right now. There's a saying in Silicon Valley, you don't really have to start a company to get rich, you just need to join the right one early. As a startup founder, I love this stuff. I root for these wins. In fact, I dream of such wins and outcomes. But I'm going to be honest with you. Not every story ends up like a Wiz or an OpenAI. In fact, there are dozens, maybe hundreds of startups where people have joined early, worked insane amount of hours, made huge sacrifices, and walked away with almost nothing. In today's video, we're going to be breaking down the brutal math of startup equity. What actually leads to big payouts, why the numbers aren't always what they seem, and how that so-called life-changing offer might not truly be life-changing after all. Hi there and welcome to Americanomics, a channel where I, Akash Bhatt, share content to help everyday C with a visa, dream, and limited context understand the economics of life, ambition, and identity here in the United States. And I'm extremely thrilled to share that we are now part of 01 Network by Zerodha. Okay, let me paint you a picture. Imagine you have landed this kick-ass job at a hot new unicorn startup. The buzz is real, the product is taking off, and the company is valued at $1.2 billion, and you're pumped, and you should be. I would be too. They offer you 0.8% equity, which is huge if you think about it, because you've just taken a $50,000 pay cut to join this from a big tech job. But on paper, that 0.8% is worth $9.6 million. Fantastic, right? You're probably doing the math in your head and picturing early retirement, maybe a house or two, or trying to build that dream life. But here's where things get really interesting and spicy. And also, probably how most people fall into the startup equity trap. Now, because you haven't seen the cap table or don't really know and fully understand the true value of your equity, you're unable to calculate what that's going to look like down the road. So essentially, that 0.8% equity could turn into a very, very different outcome. Let's break that down. Let's say the startup that you've joined has raised $180 million from investors spread over 4 different rounds, Series A, B, C, and D. But into every single round, there's a little clause that's called liquidation preference. This is the rule that decides who gets paid first and how much when a company finally exits. Basically, it's a rule that says investors get paid first and they get paid more than what they actually put in. Now, let's put the numbers to work and see what different scenarios look like in your case. So the Series A investors who participated quite early have 1.5x non-participating preference, which means if they invested $30 million, they're now going to get back $45 million before anyone else sees a dollar. Next comes the Series B investor. They have 2x participating preference. So if they've put in $40 million, they're now going to be walking away with $80 million. Next, the Series C investor put in $50 million and have a 3x preference, which means $150 million for them. The Series D investor who have put in $60 million at a 2.5x liquidation preference gets another $150 million. So altogether at this point of time, there's $425 million that's going to the investors before anybody else get anything in return, which leaves about $575 million on the table. That's for you, the other employees, and the founders themselves. So your 0.8% share of the company is now going to be apart from that $575 million, not the original $1.2 billion, which means that it's now worth half, $4.6 million, which is still a very, very good outcome, but not what you actually thought at first. Now let's look at the second scenario. The company exits for $600 million. The investor preferences don't change, so they're still getting $425 million. But now that the company only has $175 million for everyone else. So your slice is now down to $1.4 million. Still not too bad, but way far away from what you initially had calculated on paper. This is where it starts to hurt most employees. Now, let's say in the third scenario, the company sells for $400 million. That's less than what the investors actually get paid because they're supposed to get $425 million, right? So what happens to you? What happens to your equity? Well, that's basically wiped out. You've worked your ass off for 5 to 6 years. You've really given it your all, and now you have nothing in return. This is called a liquidation overhang. It's a very common scenario with startups who have raised multiple rounds of funding. Unless the sale price clears out the existing investors and their payouts, there's literally no upside for you or any of the other employees. So here's what I tell anybody who's trying to join a startup job today. In fact, I tell this to all my employees at Lean. It's not really about how much equity that you're getting. You really need to understand the whole cap table so you can ask your employers or future employees to get an insight into what their cap table looks like or what liquidation preferences investors in multiple rounds have had. Now, founders might not always want to share this freely, but if you ask them under the right way and manner, which is usually under an NDA, they're more likely open to share that information with you. So find out what has already been raised. Ask what happens if they raise more capital because more funding probably means more dilution, which is not really a bad thing. But you've got to then dig into the numbers. Find out and learn what ownership looks like under 3 different scenarios that you probably have not calculated, which is company that sells for less than its current valuation, what happens when the company sells for half the valuation, and what happens if the company sells for more than 75% below the current valuation. Now, if they give you clear answers, fantastic. But if they tell you things like, hey, don't worry about it, it's going to be a great outcome for all of us, it's a huge red flag. You might want to keep an eye out for answers like that. Joining a startup can be life-changing, trust me. But it's only so if you really understand the true rules of the game. I'm not trying to spook you or make you walk away from startup equity. All I'm saying is walk in with your eyes open. Because most employees don't really get diluted once, they get diluted twice. Once on paper and once in reality. The first is the math and the second is silence. So if you've got a friend thinking of joining a startup, share this with them. Not to spook them, but to prepare them. Because trust me, ambition deserves honesty. And equity isn't truly just a gift, it's a gamble. So make sure that you know the odds way well beforehand before you take a bet on your career. This is Americanomics and I am your host Akash Bhatt, and each week I share content to help every Desi understand the economics of ambition, identity, dreams and reality of life in America. If you want to learn more such insights, like this video and subscribe to the channel. I will see you in the next one.